Hello there, fantasy owners. This is Sean, the fantasy ace with a hat, here to bring you all the tips, tricks, and tools you need to dominate your leagues. This week, we are going to be talking about Watkins Glen. Watkins Glen is a road course for those of you that do not know. There is only one other road course on the entire NASCAR circuit, Sonoma Raceway, and that is the best course in order to actually take some notes from, in order to figure out anything that's close to Watkins Glen. But notable about Watkins Glen is that there's a few zones for passing, a few particular corners that drivers generally like to pass at. What's important to note about these corners is that usually the best handling cars tend to make their way towards the front using these passing zones. And the best way to tell which cars are going to handle the best in the long run so far is to take a look at the practice speeds, especially final practice. Qualifying is another indicator that can help you make your decision, but that's only just one lap. You want to look for guys that are in the long run. And guys that do well in the long run usually come within the practice sessions, especially final practice. So use that accordingly as you will make your picks for this week's race. And as such, I have 5 picks in mind in order to use for Watkins Glen. When you go to Watkins Glen, you want to have a driver that has a lot of experience, because experience matters at a place like this. And perhaps no better example will be put on display this week than Jeff Gordon. He starts in the 5th position. He is also known as the Road Course King. And a Road Course King starting from the 5th position is a good thing, because high starting positions usually equate to better finishes at a track like this. Jeff has 9 wins at road courses, including 4 at Watkins Glen, which is a very good stat to uphold. He also has led 29 laps at Watkins Glen at last year's race. Another important stat, because leading laps at a place like this will get you so many fantasy points, and you need that in a lineup this week. And another factor in order to use Jeff this week is his momentum. Last week he finished 3rd at Pocono. And usually when a driver has momentum, they tend to carry that over into other tracks where they're going to do better and better and keep themselves in contention for that victory. So Jeff Gordon is a good pick for this week to use. Road course racing usually is pretty consistent throughout the whole year. And by that, I mean that drivers that tend to do well at Sonoma usually tend to do pretty well at Watkins Glen. If we're following this logic, that means Kyle Busch should be another great driver to choose for this week's race. He won at Sonoma earlier this year, and he starts in the 8th position. Another good starting position for Kyle. He also has really good history at this track, finishing in the top 10 in 8 of the last 9 races at Watkins Glen, and 2 of those times were victories. He's also led laps in 3 of the last 4 races at the Glen, so look for him to do the same this week. Be sure to try figuring out some way you can put him in your lineup, because he's still hot right now. Watkins Glen is one of those types of tracks that even allows drivers with lower values a good chance to get themselves a really good finish, or even contend with the win. One of those drivers is Sam Hornish Jr. He starts in the 24th position, which gives him room for possible finishing upside. And considering his value, he is a pretty good pick. He finished 10th at Sonoma earlier in the year, and also has an average finish of 21.8 at the Glen. But here's something to note here. He also has the team of Marcus Ambrose. Marcus Ambrose is not racing the Sprint Cup Series anymore, but his team now has Sam Hornish Jr. in its place. And that team actually won at Watkins Glen in 2 of the past 3 years. This means that Sam is a very, very good pick for this week. Find some way to use him. Just like Sam Hornish Jr., Justin Allgaier is another driver with low values that you guys should pick for this week. Apart from his really low value, he starts 12th. A really good position for a driver of his value, because another thing to note, Drivers with high starting positions at the Glen usually leads to good finishing results. And you need a guy like that on your team, especially somebody with a low value like him. Last time at the Watkins Glen, he finished 17th. He also has a fantasy points average of 27.0. For a guy of his value, that is somebody you want to get on your team, so find some way to use him this week. My last pick that I want to spotlight this week is Truex Jr. He starts in second, which is a very high starting position. Also counting into a fact that he also has a top 10 finish in 3 of the last 4 races at Watkins Glen. He has also won at Sonoma Raceway previously, so you can tell he is a guy that has solid road course experience. He is also expected to lead some laps. I mean, this guy is one guy you probably want to have in at least one of your lineups this week. He's a good choice, and I think he's going to do well. So, fantasy owners, I'd like to thank you for checking out the weekly Daily Fantasy Report starring me, Sean, the ace with the hat. If you guys would want to talk more about NASCAR with me, be sure to follow me on Twitter at SeanMan247. Thank you guys so very much for watching this, and stay tuned for next week's report when I tackle Michigan.